Hi friends, Jenny at Clover and Violet here, and today I'm going to be talking about how I cut fabric with my rotary cutter. This is a technique I learned a while ago, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't been cutting my fabric like this all along. So maybe this is already how you cut your fabric, but if not, I hope you learned something new. In this video, I'll be using my Olfa rotary cutter. I'm right-handed, and so I have the blade on the right-handed side of the cutter, but you can actually take the blade off and put it on the other side if you're left-handed. I'll also be using this Creative Grids ruler. Creative Grids are my favorite rulers because they're just so easy to see and follow the lines, and they have this little gripper on the back. I recently learned that Creative Grids also makes left-handed rulers. So if you're watching this video and you're left-handed, you can get a left-handed ruler. You can switch your Ergonomic rotary cutter to left-handed, and then cutting for you will be just a mirror image of how I do it. All right, let's get started. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about cutting your fabric using your rotary cutter and rulers. So this is something that I learned to do a while back, and I thought that everyone cut their fabric this way once I learned it, but I realized it still hasn't caught on to everybody yet. So if you're not quite sure or you don't feel like you're getting the best cuts, let me show you a couple of things that I do to make sure that my fabric cuts really nicely and accurately. So first, we have our ruler. I'm actually going to use two rulers for this cutting, and then our piece of fabric folded in half and our cutting mat. Now you'll see that my cutting mat has all of these measuring lines, right? You can see them right here, the measurements, and then they line up with the ruler. When I first learned how to cut, what I would do is lay my fabric on the mat, line it up with a line, and then I would count my squares. Say I want to cut 5 inches, I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, line up my ruler really carefully with this line, and then cut. But here's what I've learned. Your cutting can actually become inaccurate by doing it this way, because although this is a self-healing mat, as you cut it more and more, you're going to be cutting grooves into your mat. And as you cut grooves into your mat, it can expand a little bit. And when you're trying to sew accurate things, very accurate things, especially like quilt blocks, and especially when they have smaller sizes, a little bit goes a long way. Just like getting a correct seam allowance is important, cutting to the correct size is very important. So instead of cutting along these lines, we're going to use the rulers for measurement. And I do want to tell you one other thing. So cutting along these lines can cause your mat to stretch a tiny bit, which, like I said, can really matter, and it also is going to wear your mat out quicker because you're going to cut the same holes and it will eventually leave grooves and you'll have to replace it. So here's how we're going to cut instead. I'm going to turn my fabric the other direction. I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed, you'll want to do a mirror image of this. And I have my fabric folded. I already cut a piece off of this, so I know my end is square. And if I wanted to cut a 5-inch strip from this piece of fabric, what I would do is lay my ruler on top and measure 5 inches. So this ruler, the numbers that are right side up, are the ones you're going to use to measure. So here's my 5 inches, and I'm going to line it up all the way down, and then I would cut right here. This ruler has a 1/2 inch. It's an 8.5 by 12.5. So if that seems confusing, just turn it around, and now we have the white numbers, and we're going to use the 5 inch, and then I would just cut right here using my ruler for 5 inches. But for this particular pattern, I'm actually cutting 13.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to cut 13.5 inches. Now, you'll remember I said my ruler was 8.5. So how am I going to get to 13.5 inches? And that's where a second ruler comes in. I'm going to use this small one, but you could use really any other ruler that you would like. If you could see my desk now, you'd know that there's a bunch of stuff piled around. So smaller rulers work better. And I'm going to count to 13.5. So we know that this ruler already has a 1/2 inch. This one does as well. It has a 1/2 inch here and here. So I'm going to line up on the side that doesn't have the 1/2 inch because we're going for 13.5. So I'm going to go 8.5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So if I line this up now, and as long as my fabric is folded square so that I have this bottom edge is lined up straight, and cut square so that this line is lined up straight, then we have a 13.5 inch piece. So we had 8.5 plus 5, 13.5. And then I'm going to just use my ruler to cut. Now you can see my ruler is pretty straight up and down, but you could even twist your fabric like so. We'll straighten it out one more time. And then remeasure our 8.5. All right, that seems nice and straight. And then I'm just going to hold my ruler down and cut right here along my ruler line, not on these cutting lines. And then now my piece is 13.5 inches wide. And then this particular piece also needs to be 18.5 inches long. So we're just going to line it up. And this time, since it's narrow, I'm going to go 12.5. And then put this at the 6. Make sure it's all straight. And then I'm just going to, again, using my ruler as my measuring, trim my fabric. This has been a really effective way of cutting fabric for me. So I hope that you find it really helpful and that you have success cutting your fabric accurately and successfully in the future. Thanks for watching.